Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. Well, as of 57 seconds ago, Baltimore Ravens have now signed former Packers cornerback Jaire Alexander. So I'd mentioned that as a possibility as far as, him and Lamar going way back in, college days at Louisville. And it makes sense in general that, they're certainly a team that's competing. They're one of those that's trying to just maybe get over the hump a little bit. And as per usual, it'll be interesting to see what the contract details are. But as of right now, Baltimore Ravens have locked up Jaire. So, congrats to him and all. But as is the rule, as long as you're playing for another team, screw you. And that's just the way it goes. Especially since we play the Ravens, I think, week 17. So that's going to be a very serious game by itself. And assuming Jaire is healthy for that game, that's going to add to the tensions. Hopefully we get some details on that as I'm doing the podcast here so we can touch back on that. But there you go. And I can't wait for the negative Packer fan hot takes. That's the team that actually wants to win. All right, well, if they signed him for 17 plus a year, then I guess you got a point. Well, and that was fast. Compensation update. Former Packers cornerback Jaire Alexander signed a 1-year, $6 million deal with the Ravens. He turned down more to be in Baltimore with his former college teammate, Lamar Jackson. You know what's hilarious about that? Trying to find comparable contracts. There's two other corners making $6 million a year. Mike Hughes of the Falcons and Keyshawn Nixon of the Packers. Keyshawn was a 2-year deal, though. It's probably a little closer to Jonathan Jones, 32-year-old corner of the Commanders, got a 5-year, $5.5 million deal just this year. And if you're curious what the top end is for a corner, because remember, one of the complaints about the Jaire situation is how could you let an all-pro corner go? I like Jaire. I wanted to keep Jaire. All that's true. But to say that he's an all-pro corner because he was an all-pro several years ago is no different than saying how could you let go of an MVP quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, even though that was a little bit closer, when he's not an MVP that at the time we let him go, and it also doesn't really take into account the contract and all that kind of stuff. But to be clear, the top end right now is $30 million per year that Derek Stingley got. If that's a little bit iffy for you, then $25 million for J.C. Horn. Jaire got a 1-year, $6 million deal. So understand, he's being compensated what is believed to be his value. You say, he turned down money. He didn't turn down $20 million extra dollars. All right, he might have turned down $1 million or so. So the value of Jaire is extremely low. And again, if we could just circle back to the fact that people saying that Gutekunst dropped the ball because he couldn't get something for him for $17 million. Well, you could have got something for him. Nope. Not if his value is $6 million and the contract that he'd be traded at is 17. So the only real options were they work out some kind of a restructure with Jaire and his contract, or they cut him and he signs for very little money. Again, 1 year, $6 million? That's like backup money. That is backup money. That's garbage. That corner that I mentioned that's, 32 years old or whatever for Washington, the three corners they have, Marshawn Lattimore, Trey Amos, and Mike Sanderstill. So the 1 year, $5.5 million deal that guy signed is currently a backup corner in the NFL. And it's even less than that. The deal is actually a 1 year, $4 million deal with $2 million in incentives. 1 year, $4 million deal is what Mike Ford got for the Falcons. Mike Ford, by the way, let's see, he played 58 snaps last year. He's 30 years old, had a 29 PFF grade, 29 coverage grade, 28.8 to be specific. He had the sixth most snaps among corners for the Falcons last year. So CB6 with a 29 grade at 30 years old got signed to a 1-year, $4 million deal. That's what Jaire just got. And again, all the comments are, wow, what a steal. I can't believe, how did they do this? This is the greatest thing. Because I don't understand how, it's just odd to me. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, how people don't have the ability to see new information and then realize, oh, I guess I was wrong. Let me think of something different. Rather than saying, Jaire's an all-pro, he's great, he's all these things, he's worth $20 million a year, sign him, bring him back, then they see him get signed for a 1-year, $4 million deal and say, wow, how did the Ravens get an all-pro for $4 million? Guys, please, I'm pleading with you. When you see something like that, you have to start thinking to yourself, oh, he's only worth 1 year, $4 million. Wow. Now I understand. Now the whole world should make sense to you now. Everything that's taken place makes perfect sense. But instead, everything just gets more confusing. Why didn't the Packers trade him? Why didn't the Packers just bring him back? Why didn't the Packers just pay him $17 million? Why did the Packers cut him? Why did nobody else sign him? Why did the Ravens get him for $4 million? Why did Jaire sign a $4 million? None of these things make sense because the core belief that you have, you just refuse to let go. Let go! You were wrong. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go, Elsa. The whole world is just so confusing to you now. Allow yourself to change your mind. I'm pleading with you. Everybody else is wrong, and everything else is wrong, and all of reality is wrong, and all 32 teams are wrong, and everything else is wrong because I believe this one thing and I refuse to change my mind. 1 year, $4 million. Why didn't the Ravens sign him to a longer-term deal for that amount of money? Why don't you make it a 3-year, $12 million deal? Because then even if he plays like a half a season, you still got your $12 million worth. You know what I'm saying? He's an all-pro. If all pros are worth $25 million, 1/2 of a year is worth $12 million. 1/2 year over 3 years would be worth it. Just pay him. Maybe because nobody views Jaire as an all-pro corner. They don't trust him to give you all-pro production, certainly not over the course of a full season, much less multiple seasons. The NFL is ready for Jaire to retire, and the Ravens threw him a bone. All right, dude, I guess we'll see how it goes for a couple $1 million. We'll try it out. This is worse than a rookie contract. And the guy's not even 29. In fact, he's closer to 28 than 29. At 28 years old, a guy who that just a few years ago was at the top of the position can't get $5 million solid dollars. In 2022, he got 4 years, $84 million. In 2021, the last year of his rookie deal, he got $3.8 million. When he was 24, what we learned today is how the NFL views Jaire, and it's well below what I would have thought, but it's the reality, and that's it. Just saw a Bears fan say, it seems like Jaire just didn't want to be a Packer. What are you talking about? In other words, like, trying to make sense of things that just don't make sense is, people are failing at it in dramatic fashion. In other words, the thought process is, he wanted to get away from the Packers so badly that he took such a small deal. You know, there's 31 other teams. Why would you have to take a deal that's $4 million? So, swing and a miss, like he just took a $20 million pay cut just to spite the Packers. It doesn't even make sense. Why don't you go to a different team for $15 million? Or 12, or 11, or whatever number. You know what I mean? I don't know, man. Watching people try to make sense of stuff can be painful at times. Now, I think where this gets a little bit interesting, and I don't know if we'll ever get the details on this or not, but what exactly were the Packers offering? Because we can look at it now and say, okay, I guess I was stupid to say that we should have just paid him even though it was overpaying, because I didn't realize we were overpaying by that much to keep him at $17 million. We know that the general market is in and around, let's say, $5 million plus incentives. I'm guessing everybody that wanted Jaire was willing to do some kind of incentives. So if he took less to go to the Baltimore Ravens, the less might have been mostly in incentives, by the way, because that seems very low in incentives. If I'm the Packers, and let's say the market's $4 million, I'm saying, okay, look, I'll give you 5 just to sign the piece of paper. And then we're going to have layers of incentives. Number one, and most importantly, is going to be how many games you play. You play 10 games, you cross this threshold. You get another $1 million or something. You make it through all 17 games, you get like $5 million or whatever, because now we're at about 10. And I think it's fair to say, you don't have to have your best year, but Jaire healthy all year is worth $10 million. I assume, right? 28-year-old Jaire? I don't know. And then from there, it's if you make the Pro Bowl, if you're an All-Pro, whatever. I mean, why wouldn't we give him up to 17, 18, 20 if you get full season of All-Pro Jaire? Is that not worth 20, 25? Listen, again, I'm all in for all the incentives. Like, what is the best in the entire NFL worth? Any position, anybody. It doesn't matter what it is. It's worth all the money. Again, you can't put everybody on an incentive contract like that, because if we win the Super Bowl, the team goes bankrupt and can't afford to pay anybody. And I'm sure the incentives have to be within the structure of the salary cap, or they're not going to let you do it. But we have to assume either the Packers are willing to offer him close to nothing, or, as the Bears fans said, they did offer him quite a bit more than this, and he just didn't want to go to the Packers. Quite a bit, I don't know, relative. I don't know exactly what range we're working with here. I don't know if they offered him 5. Did they offer him 10? Was it around the same guarantees but low? His dad had mentioned the problem was the guaranteed money, right? Were they offering him less guarantees than Baltimore? In and around the same guarantees? What were they offering him? Like 1 year minimum, or a $1 million minimum salary with all incentives? I don't know. The whole thing on that side gets a little weird at this point, because it's like, I don't think they could have offered much less. Now, again, it might have been a very similar contract and he chose the Ravens, but I don't know. I really don't. And it's also further complicated because there's a current contract and, there would have to be cuts and tweaks. It's not as easy and straightforward as just giving you a whole new contract. So there's that element as well, but I don't know. It would be very interesting to know what exactly was offered. Again, I don't know if we'll ever find out, but just to kind of put the final bow on this thing and figure out what the heck happened. And remember, I think both sides were really ready to part. I do think Jaire was kind of upset with the Packers. I think the Packers were kind of done with Jaire. So I wouldn't be surprised if Jaire did want more to stay and the Packers were willing to offer less than what other teams were, which could just very easily be what the issue was. But all right, let's take a quick break. I'm going to take a couple minutes to just kind of dig around and see if there's any little details that I need to find. We'll be right back. The more I really think about this, the more it just feels weird to me. I'm trying to wrap my head around exactly what happened, but, there was a time when Jaire was just going to be gone, right? I'm not saying actually that's where the Packers are at. I'm just saying as far as like the information we had and what we all seemed to think was happening. It felt like there were no offers. What was told, what was said was the Packers have not made a single attempt to get Jaire to rework his contract, and Jaire would say no if they asked, or a pay cut, or whatever. Back in those days, it felt like the Packers weren't even really going to try. Then you find out they did try, and then you look at this situation, and I kind of am just sitting here saying, why did you bother trying? It's almost like they tried to do the thing that like Rodgers and all those people were talking about, where it's like, how dare you not even try? And then when you do try, and this is always the catch-22, when you do try and then you lowball, even though you're not really interested, but it's like, okay, well, here's what you're worth, and it's like, how dare you offer so little? But it's just, I would love to know what they offered, because maybe that would just help me at least rule out a couple other options. But I'm just sitting here thinking, and it's like, what the heck did you even off? What were we working on this whole time? Was it really just we're trying to work something out so that you could trade him? I don't know. Very odd. I didn't listen to it, but Clayton had posted something here. Jaire Alexander's father just now on ESPN, Wisconsin. He said, if the Packers had taken the injury serious when it happened, he would have been available down the stretch of the season. That's the first thing. So this is the whole issue that took place. This is another thing I was kind of pondering, I guess, is this whole injury thing. It's really weird because it seems pretty obvious that the split between them was Jaire wasn't playing, the team felt like he could play, and Jaire felt like he couldn't. And Jaire was probably frustrated that he was being pushed. He probably went on the field when he felt he wasn't ready and got that whole thing. And if you remember, this was kind of the interesting thing, the interesting thought that I had. A lot of people were complaining about this situation. Devondre Campbell, Jaire, and a few other people seemed very unhappy. The Green Bay Packers took the players' side. They believed them, they listened to them, and they said, okay, all right, the players seem unhappy. They fired the entire training staff. Because remember, when we say the Packers push Jaire, the Packers don't believe him, when I say that, it's the training staff. Brian Gutekunst has no clue how injured Jaire is. Matt LaFleur has no clue other than to ask the doctors, the training staff. Remember, and we'll hear this in the near future when it comes to training camp, preseason, the regular season, there will be questions asked about what's the status of so-and-so? Is he going to be able to practice today? And he's going to say, I don't know. We'll find out when we get on the field. That's what he's going to say, because he doesn't know. He does not make that determination. He has nothing to do with that. He gets out on the practice field for training camp and sees who's sitting on the sideline and who's participating, and that's it. So the team, Gutekunst and the crew, are like, look, the players are saying this, we're going to believe the players. They fired the entire training staff, brought in a new training staff, and then what happened? The team, Gutekunst and everybody else, seems to continue to be frustrated with Jaire, even more so this time around, and they're not getting rid of the training staff. They seem to be getting rid of people like Jaire. If I'm just putting two and two together here, it seems to me they fired the entire training staff, brought in an entirely new training staff, and that training staff was saying the exact same thing as the last training staff. And Gutekunst and company are sitting back saying, yeah, I'm thinking that's not a coincidence. This seems to be a new group of people coming to the exact same determination that things along the lines of Jaire can play. I don't know. He seems to be okay, and he's just not getting, whatever. They're also not having these issues with a lot of other players. And so the team is able to put two and two together and say, look, Jaire, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, whatever. But I've had two, and I'm not talking two people. I'm talking two entire staffs, groups of people coming to the same conclusion. So, I don't know. I'm just trying to read between the lines here. But again, this seems to be the case. And we have had two different training staffs, and we have had this kind of a complication. I'm trying to think how many things that I just kind of, made up could possibly not be true. And there's not a lot of things. So, I don't know, man. I mean, at the end of the day, it almost doesn't matter, because even if Jaire wins that argument and the determination is, yeah, he is that injured and he can't play, congratulations, you win. You're that injured and you can never play. Okay? So well done. But anyways, the second part that Clayton laid out here, it says on the contract, he says there were no guarantees in the contract proposal. Now, I don't know how the Baltimore Ravens contract is structured, but there's not a lot of money there to be had. Even if all $4 million is fully guaranteed, I mean, congrats. I don't know. Beyond that, I mean, maybe it would be silly considering Jaire's situation to say considering it's a 1-year deal, it's pretty much fully guaranteed anyways. I'm guessing the issue is they weren't guaranteeing against injury, and I can't really fault the Packers on that one. That's the entire issue, is the injury issue. If I give you a full contract and guarantee it, even in the event of injury, I mean, the other really interesting part here, which is, it's not a quote, but Clayton says he would have stayed in Green Bay for $8 million. Or, excuse me, he said they would have stayed in Green Bay for $8 million. Just to be clear, this isn't Clayton, this is the dad talking about him and Jaire. Or not really him, but you know what I mean. And I guess that offers a little bit of clarity, not a ton. I mean, you could see a situation where the Packers were offering 5, right? Or even in and around 8, but again, he said there were no guarantees, which really upset them. So maybe they were offering close to that, but just said, we're not putting guarantees in this. And I don't know if that means, well, I guess the way it's worded, it does sound like it's exactly 0 guarantees. But it also does seem like that's a premium for the Packers, does it not? If he's saying we would have stayed for $8 million and he just got done taking a contract for 4 with 2 years or $2 million in incentives. I mean, they did say that they would. He took less to go to Baltimore, but he certainly wasn't willing to take less to stay in Green Bay. So maybe the number was 8 for everybody except for the Ravens. But I mean, that's 50% plus the incentives. For whatever that's worth. I don't know what the incentives are. I mean, that if it's like all pro or whatever, he's probably not going to get it. If it's $1 million for Pro Bowl, $1 million for all pro, he's kind of iffy that he gets Pro Bowl. If he's healthy, he probably gets Pro Bowl. But I guess I would settle somewhere in that range that the Packers were between 5 and 8 million. And the real issue is that there were no guarantees. And so they just couldn't get a deal done. And so he left, wanted to go to Baltimore. Baltimore offered him a rock bottom contract. And he said yes, because he wants to go play for Lamar. That's the clearest picture right now I can paint. Maybe there's an angle I'm missing. I don't know. It's a very weird situation to be sitting here nickel and diming the whole Jaire thing. I mean, the faith, not just in Green Bay, but around the NFL, must be so low in Jaire's availability. I don't know if his injuries are maybe very prone to re-injury or whatever. I don't know. Oh, here we go. Slick Rick Scoops. I got to put this guy on my list of people to watch because, again, I don't know if this guy's full of crap. Sometimes he tends to get stuff, so it's like, ooh, whatever. But he says the Packers are working on an extension for left tackle Rasheed Walker. They hope to have done before. Well, I don't understand that. Unless they can get him for cheap. Let me put a button on the Jaire thing here. I think we're about done with it. Got my head spinning with the Rasheed thing now. Which again, maybe it's fake. I don't know. But all right, we're done with Jaire. We're moving on. I wanted to get to ESPN. Maybe we'll do that in a second. But we obviously drafted someone to take his job. And again, I was always kind of iffy on that. But I mean, I get it, and it needs to happen. If it doesn't happen, I don't know what we're doing here. Where does Jordan Morgan play? Well, he plays right guard. Okay, where does Anthony Belton play? Is he going to play left guard after Banks leaves? Is he going to learn from Banks for 2 years and then take his job? What the heck are we doing? The only thing I can think, again, I don't know if this is real, but let's assume it is for the sake of thinking stuff through. The fear that I have with this situation is you don't want to lose Rasheed Walker. Rasheed would, if he ends up being a backup, be probably the best backup offensive lineman in football. I can't imagine there are too many better guys than him. If you can get him for a decent enough price that you're comfortable with him being sort of a swing tackle, he can come in, play right, left tackle, whatever, in a pinch, and you're good to go. And we've had a lot of injuries, so having solid quality depth like that would be great. The fear I have is the second he loses his job, he's getting poached and he's going to go play left tackle for somebody else. Is there a number he would accept right now today? Because you got to think, look, for Rasheed, it's kind of a do you want to bet on yourself thing. because he maybe didn't know this was coming. He's thinking, I got to play one more year. I might lose my job, and then am I going to get another opportunity playing for a new team, and that may go terribly. I don't know. I don't know what offensive tackle 3 money looks like, but you go to the top of that market, you offer him a long-term deal at that price, and he obviously has the opportunity to still win that position and play it, but in the meantime, you're getting long-term secure. As a guy that's worried and thinking, man, I'm about to lose my job here, and I don't know what the future looks like for me after that, the Packers are saying, we like you, we want to keep you, we want to lock you down, here's tens of millions of dollars and security for the rest of your life. How does that sound? Personally, if I'm if I'm Rasheed Walker, I would probably say no thank you. I would battle to win and keep that job, and if I win it, then I'm going to ask for a lot more money, and if I don't, then I'm going to go somewhere else, and I'm going to get a lot more money somewhere else as a left tackle. Now, maybe he's not as highly regarded as I think he is, which would explain why the Packers seem to want to push him out and also feel that they could lock him down for maybe not as much money, similar to the Jaire thing. Maybe he's not as valuable as, in my mind, he is. I don't know. We'll see if that ends up coming to fruition. My thought, again, there's fear of losing him, but my thought is let it play out and see how it goes. Let's just let it play out. And on the very outside chance, that Rasheed signs like actual starting tackle money, then I don't know. I don't know. Somebody else is going to have to come do this podcast for me because I don't know what that means. All right, let's take a break here. There's something else that needs to be addressed. Again, it's just absolute spiraling nonsense, crazy town that's been going on, and should probably be addressed. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. So this interview happened. I don't know. Is this the person that did the interview here? Dominique Yates, Packers multimedia reporter, Journal Sentinel. He there's a little clip from an interview, and listen, I would be lying if I said that there was no part of me where my ears perked up, but like a lot of things, there's a lot of times when you probably heard me say things like this during the regular season when I overreact. And I need to calm down. It's like the rule that I have where I'm not allowed to post on social media during football games because I end up being massively negative and I look like an idiot. Oh, not nice freaking interception. I guess we don't have the guy, or you know what I mean? Like that stuff just comes flying out of me during football games. Catch the freaking ball, cut him. You know what I mean? Like that's the stuff that I deal with live during football games. There's a few times when I live stream games, you probably watch me launch things across my room during football games, and a lot of the positive fans would watch me and just tell me, like, bro, you need to chill. It's like, just shut up and don't tell me what to do. The point is, just because I heard something and there was a weird reaction doesn't mean I can't take 5 seconds to slow down and think it through and go, oh, never mind, that was a stupid reaction. I'm going to play this for those that haven't heard it. Again, this is Ed Policy, if I didn't say that. This is going to be the president of the Green Bay Packers, basically the acting president, I would assume right now, but in about a month or so. Here is that interview, or that clip of that interview.
You know, I try to keep things very simple in that regard, and the Packers...
By the way, hilarious to me, when I don't know if I've ever heard his voice before. Hilarious to me that when I listened to this, my first thought was, he sounds like Mark Murphy. His voice to me sounds like Mark Murphy. And it made me think of Andy Bernard from The Office. Sorry for the non-Office watchers, but remember early in the show, all the characters kind of evolve over time. Andy probably more than most, but in the beginning of the series with Andy, his whole thing was he was a brown noser that had all these techniques to try to get ahead. And one of them was mirroring, which is essentially just copying the person you're talking to, copying their mannerisms and everything about what they're saying and how they say things. Ed Policy was basically just mirroring and copying Mark Murphy for so long, he just became him.
Organization exists really for three reasons, and three reasons only, and that's to win football games, to keep the Packers in Green Bay, and to strengthen our community. So those are the three things I'm going to focus on. We are going to work on and do everything we can to continue to field a team that's capable of competing for championships. In terms of keeping the Packers in Green Bay, we're going to do everything we can to continue to have a very strong business operation so that we can fund and support that team. We're also going to continue to maintain and evolve Lambeau Field so that it remains not only iconic but also state-of-the-art. And we're going to continue to strengthen our community through things like Titletown, other philanthropic efforts, and all of our other community involvement.
Okay, so he had three things, and then he elaborated on those three things. And Packer fans are completely melting down. They already want Ed Policy fired. He hasn't even gotten the job yet. The big one that everyone's freaking out about is when he said keeping the Packers in Green Bay. The assumption here is, wait, are they worried that maybe they can't stay in Green Bay? And again, I'll be honest, when I first heard it, I was like, whoa. But it took me 5 to 10 seconds to recognize that all he's doing is laying out the core foundation of what it means to be the president of the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers face unique challenges as a small team that is dedicated to a region. There's a lot of other teams that are not dedicated to a region hardly at all. They're here because they're here, and if it makes financial sense to go somewhere else, that's what we're going to do. Teams do that all the time. They go where it makes the most financial sense until they end up in LA or New York or something. The Green Bay Packers are not that way. They, number one, have challenges that make it hard to stay in a small town, and number two, need to maintain this core focus of no matter what, we will never leave. That is something that you will never get a job unless that is a part of your core focus and that you understand that. And so all he's doing is laying out the most basic core fundamental functions of the president of the Green Bay Packers. And it's the same three principles, probably going back to the inception of the team. There's no breaking news here. There's nothing shocking. This is the most... I mean, what would your answers... You'd probably just leave out the keeping Packers in Green Bay thing because it seems so obvious. But yeah, that's exactly right. It is obvious. Just like winning football games is obvious. Of course you want to win football games. What are you saying? Is something wrong? Do you think we're not going to win football games? Why did you say that? Let me read some of the responses here. Here's Scott B. Keeping the Packers in Green Bay? This isn't a serious CEO. What? What are you talking about? That's not his job? You also understand, he has a job to do. Let's say he works 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, whatever it is. He knows what those things are that he's working on. He laid out, let me play it again, see if I can find it here.
Community. So those are the three things I'm going to focus on. We are going to work on and do everything we can to continue to field a team that's capable of competing for championship.
Which is an important part because nobody seemed to want to listen to that part.
In terms of keeping the Packers in Green Bay, we're going to do everything we can to continue to have a very strong business operation so that we can fund and support that team.
Okay, I swear nobody listened to the second part of this. A large portion of the work that he physically does has to do with running a very successful business operation so that you can fund a massive organization surviving in a small town. Yes, I understand this is common sense to you, and you think you can just magically keep Green Bay, the Packers in Green Bay. But for Ed Policy, that's not how that works. For Mark Murphy, that's not how that works. You have to actually physically do things. A large portion of his workday is dedicated to making sure that the finances are in order so that the Packers never have to move, which, by the way, in my lifetime, that was very seriously a question of whether the Packers would be staying in Green Bay. There's no law. There's no dictate from some higher power that says the Packers shall never leave. It's up to Ed Policy to make sure that we never leave. Keeping the Packers in Green Bay, this isn't a serious CEO. I don't know what you're talking about. Aaron from Wisconsin says, I didn't realize the Packers leaving Green Bay was an issue. It's not. Nobody said it was an issue. Keeping Packers in Green Bay, what? Says Jimothy Schrute. Kurt Esquire says, was keeping the Packers in Green Bay an issue? To keep the Packers in Green Bay, the Pack isn't going anywhere. Why would that thought even enter his head? Right? It's not going anywhere because of him. And he does. You think he has to do nothing to make sure that we stay? That's his job. Can he talk about winning a Super Bowl? This was another one that a few people wanted to bring up. Well, he never mentioned winning championships. Well, he kind of did, you moron. Yeah. He said winning football games. If you didn't win a championship, it sounds like you lost a football game at some point. Beyond that, when he elaborated, he literally did. Who's suggesting we move the Packers to a bigger city? No one. Sounds like this guy came from Buffalo or Las Vegas. This guy has been with the Packers for decades. Dum-dum. Keeping the Packers in Green Bay, who TF is this bum? People who have no idea what they're talking, they don't even know who Ed Policy is. They don't know what the president does, and they're going to come swooping in with, by the way, I didn't skip a single comment. I wasn't filtering out the comments and just looking for the negative ones. I literally just read every single comment that's here. This is from a while ago. Let me refresh it. Nope, that's it. That's every single comment. So again, there's a lot of positive Packer fans that listen to this, and they'll reach out and they'll be like, stop focusing on those people. There's just a small group of people. You don't need to focus on them. No, it's not. It's every comment. But wait, there's more. For the group that's like, oh, it's just a small group of weird wackos. Relax on social media, who's a known negative Packer fan. There's a graphic that was put up that says, Packers' new president, Ed Policy, lists his 3 priorities once he takes over in July. Win football games, keep the Packers in Green Bay, strengthen our community. He said he forgot win a Super Bowl. No, he didn't. That's wrapped up in the first one. That's a part of that umbrella. He didn't literally list out every single thing that he'd like. There's 3 goals. Win games. Which, by the way, can you explain to me? Can anyone just break this down for me? I want you to help me build 2 different teams here. Take the day, all right? Call in sick, take the day, get a couple scratch pieces of paper. I have an assignment for you. Build a team that wins football games on one sheet of paper. Build a team that wins Super Bowls on another sheet of paper, and show me compare and contrast. It's like The Office again with Pam. It's the same picture. If you're building a team to win championships, you're building a team to win Super Bowls. If you're building a team to win Super Bowls, you're building a team to win championships. This is the annoyance I've always had all these Rodgers years, where it's like, oh, you can win regular season games, but you don't know how to build a team that wins Super Bowls. What are you talking about? Do you understand the mechanics of how you win a Super Bowl? What do you have to do? So you win throughout the regular season, then you go to the playoffs, and then what's the first thing you have to do? You have to win a game in the wild card, right? Okay, so you have to play a game and win a game. Then you have to play a game and win a game. Then you have to play a game and win a game. And then you have to play a game and win a game. But what are the other things? Because it can't just be win football games. What are the other things in addition to winning games that you have to do to win Super Bowls? Oh, is the answer nothing? No, he didn't forget to win a Super Bowl. And if you had listened to the words he actually said, you would know that he did elaborate and talk about championships within the umbrella of winning football games. It's a part of the same thing. Winning games is a category. In that category is building teams and making sure you have a quarterback and getting coaches and GMs, drafting and developing and cap management, and there's a lot of things involved in that. He didn't forget them. He just didn't list every single thing because he's expecting us to have the common sense to understand that it's wrapped up in that thing. Then you have Steve Homer True. Again, I still don't know. Is he on ESPN? Doesn't say. Best person on Twitter, smart and entertaining, world's greatest edutainer. I don't know. It doesn't help me understand. I feel like he is. Because I feel like when I see clips of him, it's in that same studio that I see those other people in. Everything coming out of ESPN is ESPN Milwaukee, ESPN Madison, maybe. I don't know. The content coming out of these, I don't know if ESPN maybe has changed their programming to be like, look, we need you guys to be clickbaity and ridiculous. But everything I've seen from them in the last 6 months to a year has just been nonsense. He does have a link on his profile, but it leads to nothing. It's just broken. See if I can find a video. Did he post a video of himself at all anywhere on here? I don't think so. Oh, there he is with the ESPN background. That's what I thought. Boy, oh boy. Anyways, here's what he said on social media. Win football games, number 1. Keep the Packers in Green Bay, number 2. The person who said, this is all caps, the next part. The person who said this must immediately be fired in his position of importance for the Packers. I don't even think that sentence makes sense. The person who said this must immediately be fired in his position of importance for the Packers. Okay. And I am being nice. Yeah, we should probably kill him. I vote for kill him. What do you guys think? Should we kill him? What are you talking about, Steve? He said we need to win football games and keep the Packers in Green Bay as 2 of 3 priorities for the president. As in, these are the things I need to actually physically do. And anybody that covers the team, follows the team, should probably know that that is a thing. Not only is it a priority, but is a thing that needs to actively, physically happen. And yet we're all just melting down. Comments on this: nothing like a bad opening salvo. Biggest PR gaffe since Al Haig. No, that's not a gaffe. It's his job. He's telling us what his job is. Somebody commented on that and said, you never played, but somehow still have CTE. Oh, yeah. Somebody else commented, WTF are you talking about? Are you new here? The challenge of keeping the team in Green Bay has been a priority forever, which is true. He says, not to this president, it's number 2. That would have been a decent little comeback, except he never said it was the number 1 priority. He said it's been a priority forever. So swing and a miss on that one there, Steven. And then finally we get some more brilliance here from ESPN. This is Jen, Gabe, and Chewy. Just here you go.
Is there any chance that the Green Bay Packers are not the Green Bay Packers? Where did this come from?
I just... By the way, they brought on Adam Schefter, who I'm just not a super big fan of. He's an insider. I appreciate the insights that he provides, although it's somewhat redundant and unnecessary because either, Ian Rappaport or Ari Miroff or any other of these people would be providing the same information within seconds, but whatever. As far as the insiders go, he is very much my least favorite. The arrogance is through the roof, and he doesn't seem to understand that the only value he provides is the fact that people tell him things and then he tells us what those people told him. The fact that people ask him questions that he doesn't have answers to, and he feels as though he can pontificate in a way that because he is the great Adam Schefter, that he can give some kind of great insights into this. Brother, and for ESPN, I know he's a big name, so why wouldn't you have him on every opportunity you can get? I guess I get that, but I don't give a crap about his opinion on anything unless somebody of importance told him a thing, and then he can relay that information. He starts off immediately by saying, yeah, this is all new to me. Great, then you don't need to be on the show. Goodbye. Sorry for wasting your time.
It's the first I've heard of it.
Yep,
and
goodbye.
My first reaction when I hear it
don't care.
Is there some sort of stadium renovation?
This is off the top of his head, and it just makes me... You can hear him thinking of an answer, right? And it's a little unfair. Like they're calling him in, and he has to be the expert. And he's like, okay, they pay me to be. So he's got to come up with some. He's pulling this off the top of some random guy. And yes, I'm calling Adam Schefter a random guy because outside of his sphere of what he does, he is just a random guy. That's all he is a random guy with a random opinion on a team that he doesn't know as much about as probably the people sitting in the studio for ESPN Milwaukee. Anyways.
That's needed. Is there some sort of plan that's needed? What do they need done? Because I don't think the New York Yankees are moving. I don't think the Boston Celtics are moving.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Green Bay Packers, I've never heard that.
Yeah.
So for him to say that,
yeah,
there's a reason for that.
Yep.
And I don't know, again, They've refurbished Lambeau.
Maybe you should have sent the clip to Schefter so that he could have listened to it a little bit, where he elaborated on the fact that what he's talking about is that he needs to make sure that we have a strong business, however he phrased that. We need to have strong finances and business opportunities all over we need to be making a lot of money to fund this so that we can stay here. That's part of the job. That's part of the deal. It's a unique thing to be in Green Bay. This has already been answered for us, but please continue guessing. I love hearing you guess. It's great. It's a fun thing that we get to do. Adam Schefter guessing.
Job. It's a great place to go, but there must be more work that they want to. That's just my immediate guess.
Yeah, great.
What's your guess?
Yeah.
Is it the negotiations, Joshy?
What's your guess?
If I were to sort of peel under, it's remember the rent conversation and the.
Yeah. So there's a discussion between the Green Bay Packers and the city, and they're going back and forth. And so what this must mean, even though, again, he told us exactly word for word what he meant by that in the second part, and I don't mean the second hour, I mean 3 seconds after, that nobody seemed to listen to. He elaborated on what he meant by it. But no, let's ignore that and talk about other stuff. What he probably actually meant is not what he said he meant, either, the first time or the second time. What he actually meant is these discussions are going poorly, and we're actually really worried we're going to have to leave because Green Bay is going to kick us out, and that's my job. Listen, yeah, that's part of it, right? Again, it's not just magical fairy dust that makes sure that they stay in there. There are negotiations like this. There's also financial. There's all kinds of stuff. So is it about that? In a way, kind of like how win football games means a lot more than just win football games. Keeping the Packers in Green Bay means a lot of things. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that. But it doesn't mean anything specific. It doesn't mean anything dire, ESPN Milwaukee.
Lease and how they didn't want to pay as much. And
there you go.
Holding off
there.
Stuff.
Nailed it.
There's definitely something.
Yeah.
There's definitely something.
No, definitely.
A little posh.
And yeah, that's what that is.
That's it. Yeah, no, now Schefter knows. Now I got it. That's it. No, that's it. That's for sure. He's the expert. He knows. And now he just figured it out. Good job, Schefter. You nailed it.
I mean, as soon as I heard it, I'm like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I haven't heard that.
No. It's weird, right? He hasn't heard that. I wonder why he hasn't heard that. Because there's nothing to hear. There's nothing to hear. Which is why we don't need Schefter. Schefter, have you heard anything? No? Okay, bye. You don't bring him on the show so he can go, I don't know. And again, he didn't know about the negotiations. He didn't even know about it. So having him guess is stupid. Guessing in general is stupid because, again, he gave you the answers to the test. But no, that's fine. Let's just guess. It's like multiple choice, A, B, C, or D, and the teacher puts it down on your desk and says, it's B, and you fill in other and write in some stupid bull crap.
I didn't know he made these comments, but there has to be something with the stadium. There just has to be.
Has to be. What else could it possibly be? It's amazing that we can't think of anything else. I mean, again, Schefter's being put on the spot. It doesn't sound like he even listened to the clip. So he's probably just real quick. He's probably doing like a media thing. He's ESPN, whatever. He probably sits in his little studio in his house, and he's like, you got Milwaukee at this time, this one at this time, this. And he gets a little blip of, hey, here's what the new president CEO said this comment, and so we need to know from you. So it just off the top of his head, he's like, I don't freaking know. Right? Like, just today, when I said I'm going to take a break, I want to think this through a little bit. He wasn't given the opportunity to think it through. I don't know why. Whatever. Whatever.
Because that's a playbook as old as time. As soon as an owner's not getting what he wants, as soon as, and in this case, it's a rare ownership situation.
Yeah.
They always have to
leave,
say, okay, well, we're not considering moving, or we don't want to move, or that's not what we want to do. But it's out there as a little bit of a subtle, backhanded threat.
Mm-hmm. This actually reminds me of the last time Schefter sounded like an idiot. What the heck were we talking about? Something regarding the Packers. He alluded to something and made it sound very much like a thing. And then everybody freaked out. And then he came back and he's like, guys, calm down, calm down. That's not what I meant. It is what you meant. You didn't know what you're talking about. You clearly did mean that. Then you found out that that's not the case. And then you played it back like you always knew that that wasn't the case because you're full of crap. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly what happens again. Schefter now is going to go out and be like, what the heck is going on in Green Bay? They'll probably get in touch with Green Bay, and Green Bay is going to fill him in on the situation. We'll probably see this on Pat McAfee now. He'll be on Pat McAfee, and he'll be like, I don't think it meant anything. I just think it was blah, 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 blah. I think people are blowing this out of proportion. Like, yeah, you were blowing it out of proportion, bro. Oh, this is a wild offseason, man. I don't know if it's just, are we this bored or restless or nervous? Is this just nervous energy that just has people panicked? We literally have people calling for the firing of Ed Policy, who doesn't even have the job yet, because he laid out 3 things that are his priority, and one of them, God forbid, is to make sure the Packers never leave Green Bay. And somehow that's a controversial statement. But why say it if there's not a problem? I don't know. Why did he say win football games? Is that a problem? Do we need to panic about that? No, he's not saying it's a problem. He's saying that this is an ongoing thing that is a priority. It's always been a priority. It will always be a priority. Keeping the Packers in Green Bay is a priority. Was there a problem? I don't know. Sometimes finances aren't great. Sometimes they are. Sometimes business is bad. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes negotiations are bad. Sometimes it's good. The bottom line is, though, it's my job to make sure that things are good so we can stay in Green Bay. Whether it's money or negotiations or the city or the state or the NFL or whatever, we got to do what we got to do to make sure that it's not a problem. To be very clear, Ed Policy did not make this an issue. You all did. Well, he said it. Yeah. Said what? That there's a problem? No, you made that up. He didn't say anything controversial at all. Not even a little bit controversial. And so, look, we got to chill. Jaire's not a Packer anymore. Kind of hasn't been. It's very similar to the Bakhtiari thing. Sucks that he's gone, but let's be honest. We've kind of been playing without him for a long time. Would I have paid $8 million for him to stay in Green Bay? Yes. I would have done that. The entire NFL tells me I'm an idiot. Fair enough. I'm just saying, I would. Doesn't sound like the Packers did anything shockingly horrible because, again, the NFL kind of spoke with a singular voice on the Jaire thing. Dude got $4 million and a 1-year contract. I don't think any of us realized how much the NFL did not want anything to do with Jaire. Not just the Packers, the NFL as a whole. Nobody's coming out offering $20 million. Or 15 or 10 for that matter. Dude couldn't even get 8. You got half of that. But yeah, Jaire is gone, and Ed Policy is going to work toward keeping the Packers in Green Bay, and I'm sorry that is distressing to a large portion of the fan base. But again, I know you want to believe that Ed Policy did something wrong, and he shouldn't have said that because it distressed you, and you should not have to feel distressed, even though you being distressed is a you problem because you're crazy. That doesn't make it his fault. That's your fault for being crazy. All right? And I'm very sorry that the Green Bay Packers are going to stay in Green Bay, and I'm very sorry that Ed Policy is dedicated to that. I'm extremely sorry that Ed Policy said that his goal is to win football games, because you would have phrased it differently and said championships, although it's not super different and it's under the exact same umbrella. I'm very sorry that all this has happened to you and that you're struggling so much through this offseason. I would advise you to just chill the hell out, and life will get a lot easier and things will be a lot less controversial. Just calm down. Stop being freaking crazy. Okay? Please stop being crazy. Everybody, just stop being crazy. All right, I'm out of here. Have a good day. Bye-bye.